favour? Against? Mayor Otto, are you in favour of resuming the meeting? Carried unanimously. So now we'll move on to item 6.6, the Wondai Industrial Estate Road Network. So I'd like to move that the committee recommends to council that council officers and councillors consult with all relevant stakeholders at the Wondai Industrial Estate through an on-site meeting prior to the next standing committee meeting on the 12th of April 2023. The meeting is advertised and promoted through council's media and communications platforms, and a letter of invitation is issued to all businesses within the precinct, and a report be brought back to the standing committee meeting on the 12th of April 2023 as to stakeholder feedback and proposed solutions. I'd like to seek a seconder. Councillor Erkins. So the rationale behind this is that there are remaining issues as to vehicle movements at the estate, and local businesses are seeking the opportunity to engage with council on possible solutions. So I've had Graham who has the inspection station has come up with an idea about just having a permit system, and I have had conversations with Rob from Parkside about potentially making only one street one way and not both Burrows and Kemp. So there may be better options for council rather than progressing the full stage 2 of that upgrade if we had just some consultation around those businesses that have actually now seen where it's landed with regards to stage 1 and the issues around that. We may not necessarily need to do that full upgrade. So I think it's timely to actually look at meeting with the stakeholders and fleshing out some of the issues around the current situation. So that's the rationale behind this motion. Councillor Potter.
I thought you were trying to stifle me. I couldn't turn my light on before.
Sorry, I accidentally had the mute on.
I'm just trying to figure out what the purpose is, because we're already working on the design with a two-way access. And I know we've actually had consultation with some of the businesses in that area. So I don't know if there's any other issues that have come to light since that consultation. I'm surprised they actually didn't bring it up with the staff during that time that we spoke to them, and even when we met them on site and things like that. So I'd actually be keen to hear from the design team. Thank you.
Thank you, Manager James.
Through you, Madam Chair. Yeah, thanks for the question. The design has been, slowly been worked on over a number of months in assessing that two-way operation through the industrial estate for Kemp Street and Burrows. So Burrows is like the back spine of the industrial estate and loops back down onto Kemp Street that comes down the southern side, just for people's awareness. Parkside have definitely got a vested interest in Burrows, and we can appreciate why we are trying to get B-double movements to operate along Burrows Street, and it currently does operate one way on the western side of Kemp Street. And the interests around, I believe it's Graham Elliott, who is right up at the T-intersection of Kemp Street and Burrows Street. He's got suitable movements that can function where they enter in from Burrows Street and exit via Kemp Street out of the estate. The two-way design is taking that into account as well, because both Kemp Street and Burrows Street are going to need to access all the properties through there. So there's nothing that his allotment will not also be serviced via any other allotment in that estate. So we've been working on this for a little while now, and it's probably a timely one for us to understand what the new interests are with the estate and what goalposts have moved, if any, or are we just looking to proceed with what we know as it stands right now?
Thank you, Councillor Erkins.
I'd just like to make sure that the owners, as well as the businesses, the owners of any of those properties that maybe are not actually running a business but own the properties, are actually invited, because I think they would have a stakeholder in it. And from my understanding of what the motion was, that there are some other thoughts come to light. So I'd be very keen to meet with them to hear what they are.
Thank you. Just to address Councillor Urquhart's concerns, is that included there? Just if we talk about all stakeholders, that's the owners as well. So do we need to? Yep. Okay. Any other discussion? Mayor Otto?
Oh, sorry, I think probably just the meeting date. I think it might be the 5th of April. Sorry, Madam Chair.
Okay, so if we could just change that to the 5th of April. General Committee meeting on the 5th of April. So any other discussion? Councillor Shoemaker?
Thank you, Councillor Duff. I just want to be clear in terms of the purpose of the meeting, what structure it would follow and who would chair the meeting. My concern is some of these meetings that I have attended, if there isn't a proper structure or somebody actually chairing, my concern would be, are we trying to, who's leading the conversation is probably my question. So would this conversation be led by our infrastructure team, or do you envisage that councillors are leading this conversation?
I think that would be led by the infrastructure team.
So my concern a little bit is that while it's handy to meet with everybody in one central place and to advertise a meeting and alike, council's already committed to this project. Like, I'm of the understanding we've already undertaken the advanced design process, and I probably just want to correct that in terms of, can I please, so my question is, where are we exactly at with this project?
Through you, Chair. So we are facilitating the detailed design of stage 2 of the estate. So we are very well advanced in this regard. We're hoping to probably see if we can finish it in the next couple of weeks is the honesty of the situation. But if there is going to be material change that occurs, there's going to have to be a lot of retraction of the work developed in order to facilitate whatever the new interests are. So we are following through with the resolution of council that was provided to us midway through last year, and we're just looking to go and deliver on that accordingly.
So my thinking is the meeting time frame, it may be best to align this with the time frame that we'll actually have the completed finished design that council's funded for these works, so that we can have that open and honest conversation about the work we're actually undertaking. My concern is halfway through an advanced design process where we know we're actually investing, we've committed significant funds to doing a design, we're talking about engaging with the community, and my concern would be, are there things in play that we really couldn't consider until we see that final design and what the engineers have scoped up. So I'm probably a little bit lost, Councillor Duff, as to what the purpose of this meeting actually is. Is it to develop a new design, or is it to endorse our current design? Or, because we've had conversations with community members in the area before, that really has informed our decision to go forth with the design process. So probably my question to you is, what is the purpose of this meeting?
So since we did stage 1 and there's the one-way traffic, and the users and the businesses have noticed, there's non-compliance in certain areas. There's also suggestions about potentially just getting how many B-doubles actually use it. Could we just permit those to save actually having to do the whole design? And then there's been talk about, why would you need to do both streets one way? It's just, since they've started to understand how it all works, like Parkside, for example, have said, well, the only one street matters to us. And I've had other people say, well, it doesn't. Other businesses have said, well, this is a cost-saving exercise if you just went, okay, we'll find out how many B doubles use it. Maybe we don't even need to do stage 2. So I think that's the conversation. But whether you want to wait and take the design to them, but that's the conversations I'm having. So it's like Councillor Erkins has said, there's been suggestions from different businesses about ways to save money on this particular project. So that's where this is coming from.
So I have 2 supplementary questions. First question is, if we could fix that problem with a permit system, that, as you say, my question to the staff is, why haven't we fixed that problem with a permit system?
Or applications.
Yeah, through the chair, I might get James to answer that. It is a gazetted one-way route at the moment, but
Yeah, through you, Chair. The Wandai Industrial Estate is currently permitted. Sorry, not permitted. It's gazetted under the NHVR rules. So essentially, we don't need to issue any permits. We went and facilitated one-way operations through there in order to enable it to be gazetted, just because the road width was not wide enough to support two-way operations. Hence, we defaulted back to one-way operations in areas of the estate. Yes, there was Bunya Avenue that was two-way, but that was not the area of interest necessarily for the B-double movement. So we've been able to help reduce the costs associated with obtaining permits by gazetting it. They no longer need to put any administrative energy into applying for access into the estate. So they can access that as their business needs in order to do whatever operations that they do throughout the week. And that is supported for every property or business that exists within that estate that is on that gazetted route. So they don't need to do any applications or obtain any permits whatsoever as it stands right now.
So am I right in my understanding one way means that you don't have to have a permit, so any truck, any heavy vehicle can go into that facility without a permit?
Yeah, so just to probably expand on that, we are of the belief that if it was to be two-way through the estate, we would need to then look at reconsidering the gazettal of it, because we can't enable the safe movements and operations and the duty of care to normal operations of just your traditional car movements through the estate. There's no easy way to do this other than to consider the expansion of infrastructure through it to allow two-way operations. And industrial development requires significant square metres and cubic metres of materials in order to allow those big vehicles to move around. And we also know that area does have some drainage concerns as well. So we need to look at that at the same time. So it is, an older estate from a few years back, and as a result, it is fit for purpose. It does its job, but B doubles have come along in the meantime, and with it, there's also the National Heavy Vehicle Law that also oversees those operations as well. So we need to work with the regulator to try and assist the industry, meet our obligations, but also the duty of care back to the common users of our region as well who go into that estate.
And so my second question is, what was the final spend that we invested in stage 1 of the project, and have any of those users contributed to the development of this project?
through Chair, we probably have to take that one on notice. I think just in ballpark, I think it was somewhere around $1 million. I think was what we spent, somewhere in that vicinity, but we just take that one on notice if that's okay. I don't want to give you the wrong figure.
No, thank you.
But it was funded through council and LRCI only.
LRCI, yeah, thank you. I couldn't remember. I knew it was around $1 million. But my concern, look, by all means, always happy to meet with community if they've got issues or concerns. My concern is if we're holding a meeting, we need to be clear on the reason why we're holding the meeting. If we're holding the meeting for, as a council, to be beaten up about the fact that we've invested $1 million in infrastructure and tried to work with industry in the area to remove the administrative burden of that permit system and to actually regulate the road, gazette the road for heavy vehicle movements, I think that's a great outcome. I understand that as a business operator, I certainly understand that travelling extra distance comes at a cost, It's probably, in terms of the Parkside development, I do look at that area, you know, what a wonderful story from where they've started to where they are now. They've just boomed in growth. But the reality of that also is that they've taken an industrial lot of land that was quite affordable at the time they've built their operations. Council's invested to deliver the very best outcome it can. I'm a bit nervous about going and being beaten up by our community about what should be a really good outcome. And while I understand this could be an opportunity to save funding on stage 2, I don't understand why we would go through the advanced design process, spend tens of thousands of dollars of ratepayer funds to do that advanced design, and then shift our view or try to make our staff renege on a process that we all agreed to in the beginning to issue permits. So I'm really confused about why we're meeting if we're this far down the track for this project. And I really do want to see that Wondai Industrial Estate go ahead. I think it's really exciting, wonderful good news stories. There's some amazing businesses achieving big things. But I know there are other businesses in the region who have had to invest in this kind of infrastructure themselves. And so I think the one way, if it's only gives provision for one way, and our engineers and our regulators say that's the provision, I don't think it's our role as council to try to influence or nudge a different decision. I don't understand how we could do that. And I'd be worried about being beaten up over what is actually a really good project in that area.
So Councillor Shoemaker, we've already made it one way. The stage 2 was to look at making Kemp Street and Borough Street two-way. So what they've suggested is maybe we don't need to do that. Maybe we could cut costs by actually just making the one street. I think it was Borough Street, because the main issue is with Parkside is having to take a forklift right the way around, but at one street rather than two. So they were only trying to look at cost-saving measures rather than having us to spend all of this extra money to make it two-way on both of those. It may be able to be tweaked with just one street. They're just trying to come up with better options for us. So whether we go back and put the timelines on so that we wait till we finish the design and then take it back to them and say, well, here it is, you know, and then have the consultation. But they're actually reaching out to us to look at better, cheaper alternatives for council because they're concerned about the costs. So it's not about trying to beat us up. It's actually trying to work out solutions.
But can I just clarify, does that mean removing that gazetted heavy vehicle road to enable a permit system?
That was one suggestion just from the inspection station owner. He just said that for the number of B doubles that actually use the whole facility, maybe, you know, there's only like a handful, maybe we could just tweak it with just giving them permit systems. That was his suggestion. And I just said, well, I've actually sent that through to the general managers to look at, and then I've had other conversations with other suggestions. So that's why I've said, well, can we meet with all these people now they've seen how it works to just see if we can tweak it rather than spending all of the money on this major upgrade. That was all it was about.
Yeah, certainly. Look, if we can save money in changing a process or not going through with a project, sure. But we've gone so far down this path. I would rather wait until the design is complete and we're going to have a holistic conversation about the issue, and we've got something new to share with the community. So I'm wondering if those timeframes, that meeting, if those timeframes enable for that design to come in time for that meeting.
Might seek the advice of the manager, Darcy, or general manager, Mian.
Yeah, through you, Madam Chair, just talking with James, that we're not far away from having that design largely completed. So there probably is an opportunity, just either way, we can have consultation before. The other option is for us we can probably run council through that design in April, and then whether you want to do consultation after that, be in the hands of council to see how you want to proceed, or we can consultation before that, and then we could consider some of those issues prior to finalising the design. So there's pros and cons. Just for council's reference, at this stage, we will not issue a permit two-way operations in there with an upgrade of the roads. There's probably the one we are interested in is if there's an alternative to alter that, but I know there's been some talk around that, but whether we could go back to a permit system. Our advice at this stage, unless we're advised differently, we don't believe that we'll be able to issue two-way permits without an upgrade through the section.
Councillor Potter?
Yeah, thank you. Look, I know we're looking into this, but I know we put 40,000 aside and sort of September, August last year, and I'm just wondering whether we're going to, with this extra work and this extra, possible consultation, whether that's going to actually add to that that amount of money, and whether we've got the amount of money if it is going to cost more. That's probably my concern, to make sure it doesn't go over that particular amount that we set aside, that 40,000.
I'd like to seek comment from General Manager Meehan or Manager Darcy.
Yeah, so through you, Chair, with the addition of Burrow Street going into the resolution, there was additional scope that needed to occur. So the original report that was put up was to look at Kemp Street as being the only street to be considered for two-way. I think it was in July last year, it expanded to include Burrows. So that actually doubled the scope of the area for assessment, which means there's more intersections, more roads to be reviewed and movements to be looked at. So as a result, we've been working on this in the background to understand, right, what's the additional cost? Because at the time, I didn't have that value of cost. In the second quarter, that was put up with an additional 30, I think it was. So we're up at about 70 now as a result through the second quarter. And that's I'm pretty sure what happened last month. So I'm happy to stand corrected on an exact value, but it is in the vicinity of about 70.
Through you, Madam Chair, if it's okay, maybe just a suggestion from us is that we do run council through the design first, so that at that meeting, if council was happy to do consultation after, so that way, even myself, that way I'm fully across the issues before we go down there and everyone understands, and then that way if there is active feedback from there, we can have a look at it. In the interim, we can look if, probably run that scenario, if there's a thought that Kemp Street's the only one that's upgraded to two-way, what does that look like? Like James said, we can probably consider that and present that through council and have a chat if that was going to be more of assistance to you in that area. We could do that consultation after that standing committee if council was happy to do that. But again, we've got it by council, just probably trying to help resolve it for you, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I'm happy as the mover to change the motion to have the design complete and brought back for discussion, and then the meeting afterwards. The second is Councillor Urquhart. Are you happy with that? Yep. So if any further discussion? Oh, we'll just change the wording here now. Just change the dates. Does that work for you? 3rd of May? Is that? Okay, 3rd of May. Deputy Mayor Jones.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Just a couple of observations. The first one being when we go down, as Councillor Shoemaker asked the question on who's going to chair the meeting, and you referred to the staff. You would see that the staff lead this. I don't think that they should be. The staff should be coming along as far as any questions to answer. It has a real potential to get very volatile down there. We've met on a number of occasions down there with these people. They're frustrated. They don't want to see the full design and all that come through because they want something happening tomorrow. They're frustrated with the way it's operating, and it's a clear indication from the staff that they're not going to issue B-double permits, and so that's not going to be a good outcome. So that's probably taken off. So spending $1 million or thereabouts on advanced design and all that sort of stuff to get down the track, I think we do need to go and have that conversation. There is 3 or 4 operators down there that will become quite volatile, and I don't think that the staff should be put in that position to be leading that meeting simply because they didn't call the meeting. It hasn't been requested by them, and they're there as support to us as far as giving the professional advice as far as design and all that goes. So I think that when you do call that meeting, I think you do need to look at some way of chairing it. How you do that, I don't know, but I certainly wouldn't be in support of putting the staff in that position to take the brunt of that. As Councillor Shoemaker says, we make the decisions here, and it shouldn't be up to these staff members to go and deliver that message. It's up to us to take it out to the community. So I'd like to just make sure that the staff aren't put in that position, and understanding, totally agree that this is a vital part of our region. As far as in industry goes, this Wondai Industrial Estate is probably one of the most, if not the most successful industrial estate in the South Burnett. So more than happy to work with the owner, operators and all that down there in a very manageable way. Yelling and screaming and all that sort of stuff is not going to get a result. It'll only turn into a disaster. So, yeah, so just a couple of things there. Like I say, I think it's a good idea that we get the full design, we get run through it by our staff so that we know what's going on, and then when we go down there, the options that they're putting forward probably do, most of them I think require B-double permits to get them B-doubles in. I think what I'm hearing, I'm happy to be corrected again, but as the staff have indicated that they're not safe or not willing to issue B-double permits, simply because it's the law and the legislation that they operate under. So yeah, just my views on it, but happy for this to go through. I'll support it today.
So just on the who leads the meeting, do we need to put that in the resolution, or we're just in the motion, or we just take the comments as a given?
Thanks, Chair. I was just going to take the comments as given, and we'll organise the structure of the meeting in consultation with councillors, mayor and councillors.
So everybody happy? Any other discussion on the motion? Okay, so I'll put the motion to the committee. All those in favour? Against? Carried unanimously. Thank you. So the next item is 6.7, Maidenwell Glencliff Road upgrade, and I'll hand over to Mayor Otto.
Right, I'm about to do it again, colleagues, and put forward another motion. But I think this one's very well warranted, and it is that the committee recommends to council that officers provide a report to the standing committee to be held on the 5th of April 23 as to the scope of works required and associated estimated costs to renew the Maidenwell Glencliff Road, including gravel resheeting and drainage works, and that such works be considered for inclusion in the 23-24 works capital budget. Thank you, Chair.
So do we have a seconder? So Councillor Potter, Mayor Otto.
Right, yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. Look, I think the rationale is brief, but really does sum it up. This road, to my understanding, it has probably been one that has needed some focus. The residents out there have articulated to us that it's used for the transport of cattle and cultivation equipment, grain crops. That's had issues in terms of their inability to be able to get wide machinery through the road. I have driven the road, having spoken to a number of the residents on a couple of occasions, and certainly the drainage works does appear to need to be addressed, and the road, of course, has narrowed over time and would seem to need reformation and gravel resheeting. So why would we pick this road? I think because of its contribution to the ag sector and our ag economy. It is an important road. There's a number of producers along there that use it, as well as residents that use the road. So, look, it's a matter for consideration by council. This is really to say, look, let's get a report, let's have a look at it, and let's consider it in the 23-24 budget, and see where we go from there. So, happy to have it discussed today and seek feedback from my colleagues. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Mayor Otto. Are there any other comments? Deputy Mayor Jones.
Yes, thanks, Chair, and through you, the Thanks, Mayor, for bringing it forward. Obviously, you had a conversation out there. These are all in my area, so, you know, you're not going to vote against them. But I will just say that trying to be fair and consistent across all areas is my view when I try and make decisions. But the Mayor is right. This road does carry a lot of agricultural equipment and cattle and transport and all that sort of stuff, but so does a lot of other roads in our region. Why this one? This one also has a significant connect from the Bunya Mountains Road through to the back of Ellesmere and through to Cumbria and all that sort of stuff, so it does get used quite a lot other than just the agricultural purpose. So it hasn't been addressed for a long time. I know I've been up there on that particular road. It's black soil, and everybody that has dirt roads through their region, they all have the same issues and same complaints. So it's only asking for a report to be brought back to the costings and everything else, so I fully support it and look forward to having conversation through the budget process. So yeah, simply just asking for a report.
Any other discussion? Councillor Henson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, just a question and I guess to Manager Searle, do we have that in our program for refill? Manager Meehan, do we have that in our program for future works on that road?
Through you, Madam Chair. So we had a look at that one yesterday, and the previous resolution that we had was to do the reaper work, I think, before, not reaper, do the essential holding works before Christmas, and then come back to council to look at that work. From our point of view, we're probably happy to go and scope that road to see what it needs to be done, and that way we can table it with the April budget. As far as the forward program, we haven't developed our forward program for next year yet. We've put that nominal allocation in. Obviously, we're sifting through a lot of reaper stuff at the moment coming through, so we will have some discussions with council about where you want to prioritise that. So probably from the biggest one for us is we will need to just go and have a look to see what, if we were to do works there, what will be reaper and what will be council's contribution to that if we do there. We note that there's probably one or two floodways there that are a bit ordinary, which might, council might want to consider what it does with those elements.
Councillor Shoemaker.
Yes, thank you. Certainly, I agree. I have been out on the road. I met with the residents, and I've certainly driven the road. My question was more around the maintenance, which was the issue that the residents in the area had raised at that point in time, that it was their view that maintenance hadn't been done on the road for an extensive period. I probably wanted to understand more about what maintenance has been done on the road, and when was the last patrol grade actually done on that road, and if it's a matter of something slipped through the system, perhaps there's some learnings or something there, or questions as to why, or what we could do better through our maintenance program. I recognise that yes, there was it's a shortcut and it's used quite often for those purposes. In terms of cultivation equipment, I didn't see any flats in the area, so unless they're cutting equipment through from the Bunya Mountains, I'm not sure. So, but certainly I did see that it's a lot of grazing country in there, and it's an important road to the residents in that area. So, just would like to see more information brought back in relation to the maintenance and what was actually planned for that road.
Councillor Erkins.
Thank you. Through you, Madam Chair. Where's it a shortcut to?
So General Manager Meehan.
Yeah, it cuts through to the I think it cuts through to, it does come out on the Maidenwell.
Comes off the Maidenwell Bunya
Comes off,
Mountains
what's the
Road,
one on the
but
side?
I can't see where it actually goes to.
Yeah, it cuts through the back there to, James is just bringing it up if I may. Madam Chair, if I might.
I can see that the Maidenwell Glencliff Road goes through, but I just can't see.
Yes, it cuts out to.
You're talking about I can see where Wengenville Glencliff Road, it comes onto there.
Yeah, it cuts out to the Wengenville Glencliff Road, James believes. I know I just
can't see, I can't see why you would
Yeah.
So can we add this into the report when it comes back? Just add that in? Yep.
But also probably, my concern again is, where is it on the maintenance list? I'm very much against, us bringing roads to the meetings and having them jump queues. So just making sure that that's not the case.
No, that's fine. We're happy to include some background information on the road in the report. So, and also some of that maintenance history as well. We can add that in. That's no trouble for us.
Mayor Otto, were you able to raise your speaker so that I can't see it? I can't see when you've got your light on. Thank you. So is there any other discussion? So I might ask Mayor Otto to close. He's good. So, okay, we'll go to the vote. All those in favour? Against? Carried unanimously. So the next item is 6.8, Tingura DTMR Roadworks Materials Site. I'll hand over to Mayor Otto.
Thanks, Chair. Look, I'll just read the motion, and there's the committee recommends to council that council officers liaise with DTMR as to removing or recutting the roadworks materials site located on the Bunya Highway Road Reserve within the village community of Tingura at the front of the Tingura Hotel, and pursuant to such, council undertake rehabilitation works to level the site, apply top dressing, regrass the area, and seek financial support from DTMR to assist with the cost to complete such works, and a report on this matter be brought to the Standing Committee meeting on the 5th of April 23. I'd like to move such. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Mayor Otto. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Potter. Discussion. Did you want to elaborate, Mayor Otto?
Yeah, I think, again, the rationale is brief, but we've got, obviously, it's great to see the Tingura Hotel open again, and it's getting back to not quite its former glory, but it's been certainly heavily patronised, and it's been supported tremendously by the Vikings, Tingura Vikings Cricket Club. We normally would see these sorts of materials sites on our highways outside of our towns and villages, but on this particular case, this one is actually inside the village precinct, and it is quite unsightly. So I think it does create a visual amenity problem. I wasn't quite sure if it's a council issue, but I guess I made the assumption, GM, that it was a DTMR issue because it's on their state road. So I'm happy to be guided and to, change the motion if under advice from the guys in the infrastructure crew. But look, I would like to see that try and get DTMR to relocate it so it's not in view of people enjoying the hospitality of the Tingura Hotel. We've got cricket games happening there now, people parking there and watching the cricket, and it's just unsightly, to be quite honest. Yeah, thank you.
Welcome a comment from GM Meehan.
Yeah, through you, Madam Chair, I'm happy to go and have a discussion with TMR with it. It is on their road reserve, but I'll just say, hand on heart, there's probably a good chance that we probably own some material there at some point, which we all know they get shared. So from our point of view, we're happy to go and have a chat with our colleagues and see if there's an alternative location available if council chooses.
Thank you. Is there any other discussion? So we might, Mayor Otto, to wrap up, put it to the vote. All those in favour? Against? Carried unanimously. So now we're moving on to 6.9, Mergen CBD PWD parking modifications, and that's one of mine, that the committee recommends to council that council officers investigate the PWD parking user access into the footpaths within the Mergen CBD and work to implement improved access safety modifications prior to the 30th of June 2023. I would like to move that and seek a seconder. Councillor Potter, thank you. So the rationale behind this is I've had a number of people, either carers or people using wheelchairs, that have had significant issues with trying to park their cars and then negotiate to get their wheelchairs up onto the CBD footpath. And I had a look myself, and there's not much of a gap between where the post that holds the awning up and the section where the wheelchair, where the wheels stop is to get through with a wheelchair. And I could see what they were saying, that it is a real issue, and I think we need to investigate it. So that's the rationale behind this particular motion. I seek a comment from, did you want to make a comment, or Councillor Potter?
Oh, sorry,
Thank you, Madam Chair. Look, I'm actually just another bit confused here, because this to me is a customer request. And to me, this should have been taken to infrastructure if you had seen an issue, as opposed to bringing it to a council meeting. So, look, I think it's great that they're going to go and check, but to me, it didn't need to come to this meeting, and we're going to stand here for another 10, 20, an hour and a half, like the first one this morning, and discuss something that to me should have been a customer request in the first place.
No, this is actually a budget upgrade. Like it's a whole change, and it's on both sides of the CBD. It's not just a customer complaining. It's just the whole way that wheelchair access is positioned.
Well, then I'd like to make an amendment to the motion, please, Madam Chair.
Yes, Councillor Potter.
I'd like to move that the council officers investigate the parking within the footpath Mergens CBD and work to implement improved access safety modifications, and this is to be brought to the operational budget and put it in the forward planning for the operational budget for the 23-24. Not too sure on the wording. Thank you very much, Kimberly. Because I think if we're looking at things like this, we're looking at money, we need to put this in the forward planning. So I'm thinking the 23-24 budget would be the right place for this.
Would you like to comment? Well, do you want to add that wording first? Because it's... Kim, did you get the wording, or are you happy with the wording to the amendment? So, seek a seconder to the amendment. Someone to second the amendment? Deputy Mayor Jones. So did you want to speak further to the amendment, Councillor Potter?
Yeah, look, I agree. People need full access everywhere, and I don't, like, this is the first time I've heard of an issue with that. You know, we've had those parking spots in for quite a number of years now, since we've done up the Mergen area, and I'm just surprised that this issue hasn't come forward before this from people within our communities. And I think that if we're going to do something about it, let's look at it properly, do it, and then put it in the forward budget. Thank you.
Would I seek a comment from General Manager Meehan?
Through you, Madam Chair, probably from my only comment from my point of view is James and myself would be happy to come up and have a look at the issue firsthand and see what the issue is and what the solution might be.
Yes, because there was suggestions that it may not be it could be just a matter of moving the lines, like repaint the lines to give more space.
Sure.
So it may not be a significant budget issue, but it's on both sides where they're having trouble.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, we're happy to come and have a look.
So do we have any other speakers?
Yep.
Councillor Perkins.
I'd like to move an amendment to that, or reword it, I don't know, but I think we should, if we're looking at disability parking, I think we should look at disability parking across the region, because I know in Nanango there are a lot of issues with disability parking. So in the main street, we don't actually have any. And I do understand it's a big number to put them in there, but just to look at the feasibility of parking across the region, disability parking.
Okay, you'd have to deal with the amendment that's in front of you first. If you're going to do a report into PWD across the region, that would really be its own line. So it would be you can't amend an amendment until it's been, unless with consent of the mover, it's something minor normally. So the amendment that's on the table now that's moved and seconded will need to be dealt with. And then as after this one's dealt with, then if you wanted to move could we have a report on, or depending on what your wording is, an investigation to PWD across the region, that would be its own resolution.
So could that amendment couldn't be, the wording of that couldn't be altered to add within Mergen and the region?
Only with the consent of the mover and seconder and the leave of the council. Yeah, if everyone agreed, but it is kind of a little bit broader than what the original resolution was. I'm not trying to hold us up because I'm very conscious of time, but you're getting into a much broader report. So just, if you could deal with this one, get it out of the way, and if you want to put a single liner through, if you want to report on PWD across the region, happy to bring a report back, but yeah, we'd probably need a bit of time, I would imagine.
I understand that, but I just see here that we're bringing in individual issues for towns that I really do think are probably not things that should be dealt with here in a meeting. So, but if we're going to be discussing that, I feel that parking across the region, disability parking across the region is probably something, if we're going to be debating it, let's debate the whole lot rather than just on individual cases and individual towns.
Deputy Mayor Jones.
Yeah, thank you. And again, that what Councillor Atkins is suggesting, don't disagree, but it goes back to the big long discussion we had over the Law 3 and whatever else. And so I'm pretty much resigned to the fact that we needed to address the situation, as the CEO said, that's in front of us. I just wonder if Councillor Potter would accept a change where the council officers investigate the PWD parking user access into the footpaths within the Mergen CBD, and a report be brought back to the cost implication on the budget. And I'd go through you, Chair, to the staff on a time frame for that, a date that would be suitable for these guys after they go up and see the issue, and give us a rough idea of costing and what it would be, because we're talking about disability parking and all that sort of stuff, and in my view, they have a hard enough time as it is getting around the place. So if we can help them in any way, shape or form sooner rather than later, but obviously taking into account the implications on our budget, because every conversation we're having in here, it's always, we've got to spend more money, and I don't know, I'm blown away with the amount of notices of motion. So if this is a precedent being set for the next 12 months to the next election, man alive, as I said earlier, there's some of these things that could have went through customer requests or whatever, but anyway, they're on the table as notices of motion, and if that's the game, well, not the game, but if that's the process, I'll have to start lining up and bringing 15 or 20 to every meeting that we have. So through you, Chair, to the managers, a time frame GM as far as a report goes.
Through the chair, just mindful of the number of reports are starting to increase for us a lot. With the leave of council, can I just make a suggestion that the first part of the resolution was for us to go and have a look at that. James and myself are quite happy to go up there and deal with this under normal operations. If there's a capital upgrade, we would report that back to council afterwards. So just suggesting to council that if council was happy, council's investigate the PWD access into the footpaths and look to improve safety, because it might be, reading the thing, if it's as simple as moving a wheel stop or alteration like that, we would do that a lot of these issues we would deal with quite regularly through operational needs. If there's an impact, and maybe suggest that the first one is that just in work to implement improve safety modifications, and just leave it at that, and then the report be brought back if capital upgrades are required. And it could be, James is just saying, it could be as simple as changing a line marking an issue.
Yep.
So
Yep.
if that, again, just we're trying to be pragmatic, I suppose, to solve the issue.
Yep. So, Councillor Potter, are you happy with that change?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair.
Are you happy, Councillor Jones? Okay, so, yep, okay, so are there any other speakers?
Oh, sorry, Chair, just it brought me back if capital upgrades are required.
If capital upgrades are required.
That's one less report I may not have to do.
Are required, okay. So we'll put that to the vote. All those in favour? Against? Carried unanimously. So the amendment becomes a resolution. So now anyone speakers to the actual resolution now? All those in favour? Against? Carried unanimously. So the next item is 6.10, Mergen footpaths. So this one here is council proceeds to upgrade the pedestrian pathways on Krebs Street, Mergen. And I just need to change the wording here because it's a small section north of Stephen Street from the current dilapidated bitumen path to a new concrete path, and that such works are completed by the 30th of June 2023 as part of the Infrastructure 22-23 footpath program. So it's just on Krebs Street, Mergen, for a small section north of Stephen Street. Yeah, she's got it there. Yes, and I seek a seconder. Second to Councillor Potter. So so there's a small section. It's only about would be under 50 metres. The rest of the whole of that area is all concrete, and this small section is a dilapidated bitumen path, and people are having trouble negotiating it in their wheelie walkers, PWD residents and elderly residents are struggling just on that section. The grass is growing over it. It's buckled. It's got broken bitumen surface, and there's just a small piece. And so I wanted that to be addressed. I've sent it through as a customer request, but it's more of a it needs to be. It's an upgrade, so that's why I brought it to the chamber. Councillor Potter.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you for letting me know that it's around 50 metres. I appreciate that. But I'm just wondering whether, I don't believe seeing this particular part of the footpath on our footpath program, through you, Madam Chair, to GM Meehan, because it's not one that I recognise there. And 50 metres of footpath and concrete path, I'm sure it isn't a small amount, and how much that will affect the budget, and whether this should be put again on the operational budget, put forward in the operational budget for 23-24. I'd just like some input there from GM Meehan or Manager Darcy.
GM Meehan.
Yeah, through you, Madam Chair. So this is one that the guys looked at yesterday. It is being considered in our forward program. James was considering it for a future round of STIP. Obviously, the footpath is in poor condition. There's no doubt about that. It's probably the answer from us is we're just looking at a measure. We think it's around 230 metres in total for that section. Yeah. So we just valued that just to give you an idea. If not
From Dutton Street, it's back to the police station.
From Dutton to the police station. Yeah, right.
So it would only be. It would be, I'm sure it was under 50 metres. It's only a small section.
Oh, you're just talking about doing the end piece, eh? Oh, you're talking about the 40
Madam
metre
Chair, if I could
section.
just explain, it's
So, Mayor
it's
Otto?
the corner of Stevens and Krebs, and if you just head north towards the police station, there's just a little section there. I walked it the other day. It's probably only about 40 metres. When I was down there attending the court, Mr. CEO, it's only about 40 metres, 50 metres at the most, I'd suggest.
Sorry, Mr. Mayor, that's right at the start of the, can you just want to have a look at James's screen for a real quick, we just want him, front of the courthouse there.
Courthouse Police Station, is it that section there at Stephen Street?
So have we sought clarification of that, of the section?
That section's smaller than 230, Chair. We're just going to run a number. Is that okay if we just run a number real quick?
Sorry?
If we just run a number on that real quick?
Yes. So any other speakers while we're waiting? Councillor Shoemaker. Oh, sorry. Were you in first or Councillor Shoemaker?
Yeah, by all means, happy to investigate this as part of the upcoming program. And, you know, I think the option, whilst I recognise that you've said there's only 40 metres there, perhaps, you know, as the GM has mentioned, 230 metres, and if they're looking at it as a potential STIP project, you know, that's a potentially funded project. That's a much better outcome than spending ratepayer dollars. I guess I wanted to understand the urgency around why this footpath, out of all of the metres of footpath across the region in all of our towns, why is this footpath being recognised as a priority that should be put to the top of the list?
May I answer that, because I did put the motion forward. So it's a highly utilised area along Krebs Street, comes down from past the police station, and I've had complaint after complaint about just that small section. The rest of it is all concrete. There's a small section that's just it's busted and broken and causing issues with wheelchairs, wheelie walkers and elderly people. That's why I consider it urgent.
Okay, well, thank you for the feedback. Certainly, I think this is by all means another decision that we're making on the fly. Our recent monthly financial report that we received at the recent council meeting demonstrated that the decisions on a fly that this council has made over the past 12 months has equated to over $91,000. I'm not comfortable with making decisions that have one line of rationale. There's no asset data here. There's no budget allocation here. I understand that we have to investigate it and it goes through a process. I just would like to see us, I don't think this is careful governance. I certainly recognise that if it is, you know, an immediate priority, it needs to be put high up on our list, certainly. And when we go to allocate our footpath program, they should all be considered in that same respect. I'm just nervous about making decisions like this on the fly, particularly when there's already a system in place where staff are already identifying these areas and identifying what funding allocations might be available to try to make our ratepayer dollars stretch further. So I certainly appreciate and thank you, Councillor Duff, for bringing it forward and advocating for it on behalf of your community. I wouldn't have been aware of the number of wheelchairs or wheelie walkers in that area, so certainly do appreciate that feedback. Happy to consider it as part of our footpath program and determine what I guess we're not going to do to deliver on this project, because that's what I'm very mindful of is if we make a decision like this, we're consciously saying we're not going to deliver on another one of our priorities that would be, you know, given to us when we lay down those programs. So I'm happy to consider it, happy to look at it. But in terms of setting the aspiration that the works be completed by the 30th of June 2023 as part of the infrastructure program, we've already looked at our capital program for this year. We're very aware of the challenges in terms of getting contractors, getting staff out to deliver on the $47 million worth of Reaper works that we have across the network. We're also looking at what capital projects we can and can't deliver. I think trying to add another one in there is not responsible, and it's not going to get a good outcome. I would much rather see us consider this footpath as part of the work we do when we consider all footpaths in the region, because I certainly agree it's critical infrastructure and we've got to get it right, but I don't think this is achievable with what I know about our current financial situation.
Just a question to General Manager Meehan. So part of the infrastructure 22-23 footpath program, so do we have some, like the funding specifically for footpath projects?
Sorry, Mayor. Through the chair, we just had just a quick update on that. So we had a look, both projects are listed. So the Mayor's right, there's a 40 metre section on that list in there. There's also the 230 metre section, which is the further section down on the forward program for consideration. Just to answer the chair's question, so council had allocation in its budget. We did reallocate some of that money last week. And we also pushed back a number of those projects as part of that second quarter review. The only ones I think we proceeded with, and I'm happy to be corrected, is around the TIDS ones. I think it was the one in Nanango. We did push back the one in Drayton Street, which is opposite the office. And I'm not sure. Kev, did we push any others? Yep. So I've got that right, apparently, Chair. So that was our allocation for the current year.
Councillor Erkins.
Yep, that's my concern. I'm very aware that the footpaths in Nanango are really in need of some work. That one in front of the office, but also up near the Palace Hotel, that is absolutely a terrible mess up there. So I'm very concerned that it looks like, we're looking at doing other things, and I'm just concerned that some are missing out. So, obviously not as experienced as you guys for getting in and putting my projects forward, but I am very concerned that I'm aware that, some of our projects in Nanango have been put back, and I don't like to see that something else might be coming up into it. Let's do what we've got planned first.
Councillor Potter.
Yep, after listening to everyone, I feel that the best way forward for this one is to move an amendment to the motion, please, Madam Chair. And I think you know what I'm going to say. So we take out that last part, works that are completed by, so we take that out and we add this to the forward capital works program for the 23-24 budget considerations. Something along those wordings that will be guided by you yet again, Mr CEO or GMOMA.
So Councillor Potter has moved an amendment. I'm happy to support the amendment. Second, so I'll be the seconder.
That's better.
So, did you want to speak to your amendment, Councillor Potter?
I think everyone knows my thoughts on this. We seem to be adding more and more to this year's budget, and I think that if we're serious about doing things like this, and I think that we really need to be considerate of our staff. So adding this to our forward works program and the operational budget, I'm believing that's where it sits. GMOMA, I would take.
Through your chair, it'll be capital.
Capital, yep. Okay, there you go. Thank you. Let's change it to capital.
Thank you. It has been worded as capital.
Beautiful, yep, beautiful. Okay.
So, any other discussion around this? We'll put it to the vote. All those. So, yeah, I second it. Yeah. So we'll go to the vote. All those in favour? All those against? Carried. So the amendment becomes the motion. Any speakers to the motion? We'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Unanimously. Thank you. So the next one is 611. It's that the committee recommends to council meets with the Cobb Street South residents to work out a plan for the curb and channeling at the northern end of Cobb Street South and does a costing to consider as part of the budget deliberations for the 23-24 capital works program. I move that and I seek a seconder. Councillor Potter. So this one here is a small section of the curb and channeling that is not completed, resulting in drainage problems and a resident not being able to construct a proper driveway. So the reason why I know that Councillor Shoemaker will probably say that these are small issues, but at some point they have to, if a councillor has to put them forward to get them in to be looked at, if they are issues that are not already on the forward program. So that's why this one here I've identified as an issue. It's been an issue for quite some time. And so that's why I would like it considered as part of the budget deliberations in 23-24. Are there any other speakers? Councillor Henson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, look, supportive of this, but I'll just bring it to a Chamber's attention. For 3 years, I've been banging on about channeling curbing in Tingura. And you state here that a resident not being able to construct a proper driveway. Let me tell you, there's multiple in Tingura that have driveway issues there as well. So be aware that the 23-24 Capital Works program might get fairly busy.
Councillor Shoemaker.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to just address your comment that these are small issues. My concern is more that we are making decisions on the fly and we're not looking at the bigger picture. My concern is more around the fact that this small issue, as you say, of curb and channeling the northern end of Cobb Street South for consideration in our budget deliberations, I would imagine as a councillor who sat at this table for a number of years, you bring those projects and those proposals forward for those budget deliberations and discussions. And we look at together the asset data and the priorities of the region and make decisions around those. My concern is we make those decisions and then every council meeting we keep changing those decisions, and that is not good governance. I respect and understand that this is an issue for residents in this street, and I thank you for making us aware of that. My question is more, as councillors sitting here today, if we were all to bring forward, I could list 10 of these for my division. My division is on a hill. Kingaroy is in swamp area. My first 12 months here at council, there was one downpour and my phone was overrun with phone calls. I know exactly what you're referring to in terms of trying to deliver outcomes for residents of our region. I think we're all trying to deliver that. But the reality is that we can't deliver everything. And that issues like this, I would rather look at in the context of our whole budget, of our asset data, of good, solid principles that sets this organisation up for success, not chipping away and changing our mind after decisions are embedded and laid down. And I would have thought that a decision like this, to make a change to our curb and channeling program, would be, and to prioritise this project over others, would be informed as part of our budget preparations and the laying down of that program. So I certainly appreciate, thank you for advocating for the residents of your area, bringing this issue forward. That's wonderful. But I'm just saying that we need to concentrate on the things here that matter. We've got a full agenda and constantly being distracted by resident inquiries. I've got a number of customer requests that I could lodge notices of motion for as well, but I don't believe that's good governance.
So, Mayor Otto?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. Obviously, there's a fair degree of disagreement in this chamber as to our role as councillors and what is and isn't in good governance. But anyway, I guess that'll be sorted out in time to come. Let's not make a mountain out of a molehill here, councillors. This is a 10-metre section of concrete work that needs to be doing. We just redid the curb and channeling on Cobb Street South only last year. This isn't a big capital project, colleagues. It's 10 metres of curb and channeling so that people can build a driveway in the centre of town. I'm not sure why we can't just pass this through. That's all I've got to say. It's a very small project. It's not a big deal. Let's not get carried away with ourselves. I don't think it'll cost much at all, General Manager Meehan, once you have a look at it. I'm happy to support it. Thank you.
So just on the Councillor Shoemaker's comments, all it is asking to be considered as part of the budget deliberations. So that's the wording of the motion. So I don't know how you're supposed to put forward any, what forum, if we don't put forward through infrastructure committee meetings, the issues that we want put forward up as budget considerations. I would have thought that this was the perfect opportunity to do that. So I'm confused as well as to why that would not be something that would be the type of thing we should be discussing at these infrastructure committee meetings. Any other comments? Councillor Shoemaker.
I think we can agree to disagree, Councillor Duff. We have budget committee meetings. We have intensive capital works program discussions at those meetings. We receive quarterly financial reviews and updates. By all means, it's a project request. I'm happy to support it. I just think it isn't good governance to make decisions on the fly. As I said, it cost us $91,000 year to date. I can only imagine what it's going to cost by the end of this year.
Okay, so I will, and if there's no other discussion, I'll close the debate by saying that I don't believe that just a decision on the fly, asking for a piece of infrastructure to be considered in a capital works program, I think is to me is sound governance. So that's why I've put this forward, that we look at it as part of our budget deliberations for the capital works program. So I'll leave it at that. Thank you. So put it to the vote. All those in favour? That's 6, and all those against? Councillor Erkins. So that motion is carried. 6 votes to 1.
Mr. Mayor, just before you jump in, so my apologies for this next one. There was an updated motion sent in on Friday afternoon. Both the motions carried the same title or pretty close to it. So Kim's got the other one, the agenda. When we ran the report, we picked up the earlier version of it. So we've got the updated wording here on screen. So whichever one you want to go with, but certainly apologies. We actually accidentally picked up the earlier wording.
No trouble. Thank you, Mr. CEO. I'd like to move
So we're on to item 6.12, Kingaroy Street public seating and KTP shade structures. I'll hand over to Mayor Otto.
Okay, I'd like to move a procedural motion in advance of that. Thank you, Chair. That item 7.2 be escalated to the next item on the agenda. Thank you.
We have a seconder for the procedural motion. Councillor Potter. All those in favour? Against? The motion is carried. So we just page 51. So we're moving to 7.2, which is on page 51. And the officer's recommendation is that the committee recommend to council that the chief executive officer be delegated to negotiate the occupancy of the 2 alfresco areas on the western side of Kingaroy Street. Number 2, that council apply the following fees: 2023 no charge, 2024 $250 per structure, and 2025 $500 per structure. The chief executive officer be delegated to make the same conditional offer to hospitality businesses on the eastern side of Kingaroy Street, and that council consider installing suitable furniture in line with the KTP in the remaining eastern alfresco structures at the conclusion of the project, if at such time they remain unoccupied. So does someone want to move that? Mayor Otto. Someone to second that? Councillor Potter. Mayor Otto, would you like to speak?
Yes, I would like to. My apologies, I've been standing looking at you, Madam Chair, but thank you for the opportunity. I'd like to move the recommendation as presented, but change item 4 to say that council approves rather than considers installing suitable furniture in line with the KTP, and then remove the words "the remaining eastern" and replace with the word "all" with the KTP in all alfresco structures at the conclusion of the project, if at such time they remain unoccupied. And then insert item 5. And item 5, the matter is resolved as, the matter is resolved as a high priority within the 2022/2023 year. So I'd like to move that as, that's the motion I'd actually like to move.
So do we have a second?
So the last bit, Kimberley, is the matter is resolved as a high priority in the 2022/2023 year.
So do we have a seconder for that motion? Councillor Erkins, would you like to speak to the motion, Mayor Otto?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. I'm pleased this came forward. Thanks very much to the staff for bringing this report. If this gets up, I'll take out my notice of motion, because basically my notice of motion is pretty well has the intention of just saying exactly this. Let's get something happening in these alfrescos. I called them gazebos. I couldn't remember the word, but it's alfrescos. So thank you, GMB. And look, I spent a fair bit of time hovering around the coffee shops up Main Street of Kingaroy, let me tell you. I sort of rotate between Utopia Bakery and the Littley and sort of do the rounds. And can thoroughly recommend the bacon and eggs over at the Littley, but the stuff at the bakery and the Utopia is pretty good too. But let me say this, great to see this come forward. I think we need to do this and do it soon. The people and the residents I talk to up the Main Street are calling out for public seating. And I think the shopkeepers that I've talked to in those 3 hospitality outlets are keen to engage and finalise it once and for all. The feedback that I've got is that Daniel at Utopia is open-minded to having a discussion. The bakery aren't keen, can I say. The bakery probably aren't keen to take anything up. And I don't think Tim at the Littley is too keen to take anything either. His concern is that the one for structure is too far in terms of line of sight for his staff. So if they've got to keep an eye on customers, they don't actually have a line of sight from the front counter. So he said if it was in front of his shop, he would certainly be keen, but he just thinks that probably because it's just out of line of sight, they're probably not going to be interested. So I think we're probably potentially going to look at best having one of the 4 taken up, possibly by Utopia, depending on, I think, the cost was the feedback I got from the owner there. So I think the no charge for 12 for the first year is good, reasonable. 24, we ease them in with a $250 fee and then go to a $500 fee in the second year. I'm comfortable with that. I think it's fair and reasonable in light of the fact that they're going to have to maintain, keep it clean, they're going to have to furnish it, keep it clean, look after the gardens. I think it's fair and reasonable. I think it gives them an opportunity to have a discussion with the CEO if they'd like to do it. And if they don't, I'd like to see us move then fairly quickly to put in the seating that is consistent with the rest of the furniture we've got through the KTP. So, and I'd like to see it done by June if we can, possibly, Mr. CEO, so we can get that setting up the Main Street, finish off the alfrescos and accommodate the needs of our people who are looking to find some seating there. So I'd like to commit it to the committee and keen to hear everyone's views.
Mayor Otto, did you want to add a date there then to be completed by the 30th of June or just...
just sort of high priority, the 22-23 year. I mean, if for some reason we can't get the furniture because of supply issues, I mean, I guess it'll just roll into 23-24. But, I mean, do our best to try and get it done as soon as we can, really, is all I'm asking there.
Well, okay. Thank you, Mayor Otto. Any other speakers? Councillor Erkins.
I'm just a little bit concerned about if they're not actually being leased by one of those businesses and we've got tables in there and people eating at them, who is going to be responsible for keeping them clean?
Oh, Madam Chair, I haven't indicated tables. I've just said appropriate furniture. It may be just seating. I guess that'll be something that our design team will look at. I'm not sure if there was tables or not, but certainly seating would be welcomed by the community, I think, yeah.
So does that answer your question, Councillor Erkins?
No, not really, because I do think that the whole point was an alfresco eating area, and I think really we want to encourage people to eat there. I think that's the whole thing. I think that would be great, but just I don't know whether the even the chamber, if you spoke to someone from the chamber, they might be happy just to keep a bit of an eye on it. It's not normally a big thing. But, you know, you don't want to see rubbish left there. But I do think you want to encourage people to, you know, go and grab a sandwich at the bakery or from wherever, coffee, and sit there.
If I could just respond to that too, Madam Chair, we have a lovely gentleman in Kingaroy, I won't mention his name, but he's a lovely bloke. He was out again this morning, walking around, and as he was yesterday, picking up the rubbish in the Main Street. And he's got his high-vis shirt, Kingaroy Clean on the back, KLEEN. He does a great job, walks the Main Street every morning almost, picking up the rubbish and keeping the town lovely. And that's what I call town pride. So good on him. I think he's doing a great job. I'm sure he'll pick up any rubbish that's in the alfrescos because he walks through that area. It's the main part that he looks at. But yeah, cleaning program, we'll have to look at that. we might have an issue with getting tables in there. I'm going to have a good look at it. There's limited space there to start putting large tables in, but, we'd be guided. I think we should just be guided by our technical staff on what works. We clean infrastructure in other towns. Councillor Erkins, we clean all the benches and the seating areas in the Nango. I can't see why we can't do it in the main street of Kingaroy, considering how much money we've invested. I think that's fair enough for the community. Thank you. I'm talking about the ones in the park areas and so forth, but yeah. But I don't think it's much to ask that our council staff give them a bit of a clean once a week or so, just to keep an eye on them. Yeah. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mayor Otter. Any other discussion? Councillor Shoemaker.
Yes, very excited to use these spaces, and I think it's wonderful that Utopia have taken advantage of the opportunity. I think it will be great to be able to sit there on the street and have coffee, and that was always part of the vision. So that's really exciting. I agree. I think that al fresco structures are a wonderful opportunity, and we often see, certainly in the forecourt and even up in the street where we currently have a table and chairs, I've been amazed at how many workers in the street actually do go and have their lunch in those spaces or take their kids for takeaway in those spaces, because it's much easier than going to a cafe. I know that firsthand from my many years of pushing a pram. I am, though, just wanting to check in terms of installing suitable furniture. I'm unaware if we have a budget allocation for that, and in our existing very constrained budget, and I'm wondering how we could potentially deliver on that. I know street furniture is expensive. I agree. I would love to see those spaces used and that furniture put in place, but I want to make sure that we are actually giving the staff whatever it is they need to see that outcome achieved. So I know we cut the budget quite extensively when the final pieces of the KTP were brought forward. And I guess my question, and perhaps it's a question on notice, but what will this cost? Do we have budget available within the existing budgets, or do we need to consider an additional allocation?
So I might hand over to General Manager O'May for comment.
Through you, Madam Chair, to answer the councillor's questions, the budget, you're right about the budget. As far as chairs go through there, you would be looking at probably in the order of $5,000 per structure. That's for the vandal-proof ones. There's ones that we buy, and that's the same ones we put in the parks as well. They're the timber aluminium, so people won't say that they can't write their names in them, but they are difficult to write their names in them. So what I would suggest to council is, at that case, if we required an additional budget at the end of the project to fund that, then I would return to council just to seek how you wanted to roll that, if that makes sense. And mindful too, we'll just we'll track our budget through, and then we'll come back in June or around that time if we're looking to see. I just note there one of the recommendations that we did make, and I note the Mayor's comments about one of the businesses and their sight lines. We have got an offer there that Mark can make that offer to and hopefully entice them. But we're hopeful that we'll get an outcome there. I think the furniture, it is an issue. It's right. It was raised with me yesterday on my travels through the precinct. So I think it's one that we can resolve, and we will look to be putting bins in there as well, just if people are sitting there.
So thank you. You're happy with that comment? So any further discusussion? So call on Mayor Otter to close the debate.
Yeah, I'll just wrap it up quickly just by saying thanks to the fellas for bringing that forward, that report for the KTP team, the guys, men and women for bringing that forward. I think that's good, and love to see this get progressed, and it'll be a nice finishing touch to those al frescoes if we can make this happen. So thanks very much.
So put that to the vote. All those in favour? Against? Carried unanimously.
Mayor, Chair, if I could now withdraw my notice of motion for 612, thank you.
So Mayor Otter has withdrawn notice of motion 612. So is that with the leave of the meeting? So do I need to seek a second and all those? No. Withdrawn with the leave of the meeting. So now we'll move on to 7.1, which is the Infrastructure Planning Works Construction and Maintenance Portfolio Report. So I'll hand over to Deputy Mayor Jones to deliver that report.
Thank you, Chair, and I don't really know. I'm so excited that we've got through the notices of motion. It's absolutely fantastic. Look, I'd like to present the Infrastructure Planning Works portfolio report. It's there for everyone to see. It's a whole long list of key projects, our current design and planning projects. Wondai Industrial Estate that we spent a bit of talking about here, Stage 2 road intersection widening. Design is 80% completed, so that backs up GM's comments about almost being finished. First Avenue, Kingaroy, that's 85% complete on the pavement rehabilitation detail design, and Corndale Road widening detail design, 60% complete. There's a whole list of minor projects there as far as the design and planning goes. Our current planned works for March, our capital works program, Alford Street, Nanango, Corndale Road. Nanango is a footpath road widening at Corndale, car park upgrade at George Street, drainage upgrade Kingaroy at Leopard Court, school disabled access Moffatdale Estate, and Cumbia CBD upgrade. Our gravel and shoulder resheeting, Mount Stanley Road, Nanango. We've sent a crew out there this morning. We took a crew away from Blackbutt because of the emergency that needs to be addressed out there on Mount Stanley Road. So well done to the staff in reacting so quickly to a major concern in our community. Bitumen resealing, we've got Bix Road, Cloyner, Borkett's Hill Road, Mergen, Braithwaite's Road, Mergen, Cants Road, Waroolan, Crawford Road, Crawford. And the list goes on. There's a whole long list there. Our patrol grading, again, it goes right across the whole region. Our roadside slashing, we've discussed that this morning, and hopefully may be able to work out a better process moving forward. Whole list of places there where there's slashing. Our design and planning projects, the Maidenwell Bunya Mountains Road, the design is 100% complete. Our capital works program, Hamilton Road, Southeast Nanango, gravel resheeting, expected start date was this month, and hopefully we'll be getting close to being finished. There was a couple of $100,000 to be spent there. McLean's Road, Geelong, Muir Drive, Southeast Nanango, Rackerman's Road, Waroolan, Riley's Road, Cushney. Our patrol grading, again, a whole list of roads that you see there addressed. If anyone's watching online, and if you're still awake, there'll be this is available on our council webpage. Our roadside slashing that's already been undertaken. We go to our infrastructure on page 45. Infrastructure works for year-to-date customer requests. You can see a big list there. Roads has been addressed at 46%, roads and drainage 19%, and so on around there. Customer requests for year-to-date, 2,251 completed, 363 current. We go on then to the recent storm damage and flood response overview. The works continue. As has been noted, we're up around that 40, possibly $50 million worth of flood damage, and that over the 5 events that we had. Our staff are getting on top of that slowly, and also getting back into the patrol grading, maintenance grades and all that sort of stuff that we had to put off because of the emergency work that we had to do for the flood damage. So I still get complaints. People are going out there and seeing that we've got machinery out there doing emergent works for the Reaper project for flood damage. And again, I'll just run through quickly. It's the fact that when we send the equipment out there and the staff, they can do a certain level of maintenance to get the road up to a deemed safe standard to transverse over, and the rest of it we've got to wait on funding to be approved from state and federal governments. So that's why we attend and then go away and come back. And yes, don't disagree, it's a way people say, you know, why are you there? Why don't you fix the whole project? Well, we can't. Otherwise, we forfeit all eligibility to claim funding on that. And rather than use ratepayer money, which we don't have enough of now, we get funding from the state and federal government. So that's the process there. Our contract status, table 1 below, you can see that all the contracts there, current values and status, 99, they all go through with completion rates. And we keep going through. We've got damage inspection status overview. I'll just read this quickly. The Red Frost team continue to deliver a program damage inspection program based on the 14 South Burnett Regional Council zones. 9 of the 14 South Burnett Regional Council zones have been fully inspected, with zones 6, 7, 9, 12 and 14 to be completed by March 23. Some of these zones are partially completed under priority works, with the inspections of zones 6 and 7 and 12 currently in progress. damage identified across the region to date is identified in the map in Appendix B. So we've got a map there that is available on our website, and you've also got the infrastructure recovery program and whatnot. There's all sorts of graphs and all that sort of stuff showing there. And again, I will take this opportunity to congratulate the men and women of the infrastructure program out there working on the roads, and every single member of the South Burnett Regional Council staff for doing a wonderful job and working through some very trying times. So on a personal note, I'd like to congratulate and thank them all very much. They do a wonderful job under the circumstances that our decisions are putting them under. So other than that, I'd like to say or move that my portfolio report for the month of March of infrastructure planning works, construction, maintenance, water and wastewater plant and fleet be received. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Jones. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Erkins, so speakers to the report. Councillor Shoemaker.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Jones, for the report. I just do have a question I just want to clarify. So page 46, in relation to the recent storm damage and flood response review, I know we've talked about the concerns, the risk of potentially undertaking works across the network that need to occur to improve the safety of the road, obviously post those 5 weather events, but the reality that the QRA may not refund council for all of those works. I'm just reading and I just want to better understand. So to date, approximately 15.48 million has been spent across the 5 events, and QRA has provided grant advances and a 30% payment on 5 REPA submissions plus program payments for emergency and immediate reconstruction works. Total funding received to date is approximately 8.8 million. Council's contributed 1.149 toward trigger points and ineligible plant and payroll costs. And QRA have approved submissions to the value of 12.02 million. If I read that, am I reading this correctly when it says that we've spent 15.48, but we've only been approved for 12.2, and so the shortfall there is $3.48 million that council's actually picked up in our budget? Am I correct in that? Yes. And so my question was, how were we funding that?
So, Manager Searle, are you able to respond to that question?
Through you, Chair. So that's essentially through our maintenance. And perhaps to expand on that, there's the what's known as our immediate reconstruction works, which is works that are typically done in advance, but during the emergency work period. And so there's an unclaimed amount, so pending QRA's approval, and that's in the order of $3 million. Okay. So we have a claim that's gone in recently and another one to go in either this week or next week. Again, it's work that's done which doesn't fit under the emergency temporary works. It's under essentially permanent works, which is done in advance of essentially the REPA work.
Yes. Thank you for that clarity. I'm watching this very carefully because I'm mindful of the risk.
Yeah, if I may just make an additional comment to that, Chair, we raised this issue yesterday at our flood damage governance meeting. Particularly, we'll be meeting with QRA in probably in the next fortnight to look to accelerate some of our approvals so that we understand what our position is. Particularly mindful of our conversations last week around cash and all that sort of stuff. That's why we were very keen to bring the report forward last week so that you knew what's going through there. We have a emergent works outstanding. We have immediate reconstruction. So an example of that I'll give is East Nanango Road, Seaford Street. I think most people would be aware of where we've gone in and reconstructed the floodways because it's the only option left to make those roads safe. So we are looking to very much pull back unless there's a safety issue. So where we've either got an approval to do that works, which we have got approvals through, but the example that where we're doing works Mount Stanley Road, which I went through with Councillor Erkins the other day, that road is unsafe, and I will say that straight up. So we are diverting resources there to go through and do more maintenance on those roads. The issue that we have is we are waiting for QRA to work through what we are approved to do on that road so we can proceed. So we do have some eligibility through there, but we also have obviously our number one issue, and we looked at a number of defects yesterday, which was some big schedules. We will make the roads safe at all times. If we're ineligible for those works, then we'll come from our maintenance budget because we would have had to have acted anyway. But we are very much going to be engaging with QRA to ensure that we get our approvals through in a timely manner, and we're proceeding with that risk so that if we are doing complementary works, we know what our position is. And to be honest, that's probably one of the biggest delays in delivering the REPA program, is trying to manage our approvals and our risks so that we're coming through. Once we get those green lights, and once we get some updates from QRA, we will be coming into Walk Council through the REPA program so that you know where you are. So, and our intention last week was very much to show the first step of that, to say this is a problem for us right now. We'd like to share that and say, well, okay, seek a direction on how you want to proceed so we're not disadvantaged.
Yeah, thank you. And I recognise in your report, you have stated that in some areas damage is worsening since the original pickup, so the scope and the value of the works is shifting. My second question is just in relation to the delivery of those works. So I would like to understand what our quality assurance process is, or what do we do after work has been delivered in line with the REPA works to make sure it's delivered to an acceptable and appropriate standard.
Yeah, through the chair, QA has been a big issue that's been raised, and it'd be fair to say we've had some issues, not so much with workmanship, but making sure that works are done timely, but they're also controlled. A lot of times, with the emergent work period, we've had stuff, and council will be aware, we've had issues in some places where the works have not held up, and we've had finishing issues with that. And that's another issue I would say is when you try to rush stuff out the door, it is hard to control. We're making a very conscious effort, and it was another issue raised again by myself yesterday with the team. We do have project management control. There will be a project manager appointed to those. There is a sign-off inspection that will be done at the conclusion of each works, and there is now. A lot of times, works or defects may turn up after the works are actually approved, and that is a symbol normally of not everything is fully reconstructed to a high standard because you can't afford to do that, or you're not approved to that. So simple as stabilising. Sometimes we will see treatments that will not go the distance, but that was approved there. There is a sign-off process where we go through. There's a QA system in place. I've asked the team that we have had a couple of issues raised in recent times where it's not so much the sealed stuff. The sealed stuff we go to a little bit more effort to because it's higher risk, but the unsealed stuff, I've asked the team to increase our controls there. I actually went with Councillor Erkins again to Mercer Springgate Road on, I think it was Monday. There will be rework done on that road after that inspection that was raised yesterday. The work's not bad, but there's some improvements that need to be made there. And one of the couple of things that we've spoken about particularly is around how work is controlled. At the end of the day, the contractor is paid to deliver an outcome per their schedule. Now, some of the work practices that we're seeing is probably causing some community feedback to us that we might be doing larger sections and not compacting things straight away, so therefore it's making things difficult. That doesn't mean the work's not right, but one of the things that we've drafted or we've spoken about yesterday with the team, including our contract engineers, is that the control of the work needs to be improved, and we want that addressed now before we go and outlay these larger sections. And particularly around what is the expected of the work practices also, because if you lay out a kilometre of gravel on the road uncompacted, that's a difficult thing for community to drive through. So some of the expectations around that was to reduce those sections to 400 and 500 metres and ensure that we're practising inside of our other ones. The other thing is the more complex projects that we're seeing around the moment, the ones that we proposed last week, I think, which was the silver leafs and those ones. There's a lot more diligence going into those projects before they start. Our supervisor from KTP, Mr. Dugdale, has been dispatched to a number of those roads, along with some of our more experienced staff, to try and manage the risk on those roads as well. So it is horses for courses, and I do acknowledge that sometimes works may not be to the full satisfaction or expectation, and that might be a reason of workmanship, but also what's been allowed and been approved on those roads too. So but it's very much an issue that we are monitoring and we're watching.
Mayor
Madam Chair,
Otto?
could I please be excused by the meeting, and certainly Councillor Erkins was next, but we have legal advisors here who are due to meet with us at 12 o'clock. I'd like to move a procedural motion that we adjourn the meeting until after the special meeting for Pound Street later this afternoon.
Do we have a seconder to the procedural motion?
So, Madam Chair, we have a 1 o'clock special meeting to discuss the Pound Street matter. I believe that there are residents lined up to come in at 1 o'clock for that. I'm moving a procedural motion. We have legal advisors waiting outside that were due to be meeting with us at 12 o'clock. We've been holding them up for 15 minutes. I would like to move a procedural motion that we adjourn the meeting until the completion of the special Pound Street meeting this afternoon.
So do I have a seconder for the procedural motion? I'll second the procedural motion. Put it to the vote. All those in favour? Against? Carried unanimously. Thank you all. So we'll adjourn for lunch now. Do I have a seconder to adjourn for lunch? Oh, that does it. Okay, we're good. So we'll meet back at 1 o'clock.